Hello everyone and welcome back to Deliberate Evil. I'm Joe. Thank you so much for joining me again today. First off, I want to give a huge shout out and a great big thank you to all the new subscribers. I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate your support. You guys are amazing and I just want to thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. That means the world to me. And now let's get started on today's case. Okay, so the case we're looking at is a Jane Doe case that has gone unsolved for almost 70 years, and it comes to us from Colorado. Honestly, this case has been really hard for me to research, not only because it's so old, but because there's not a lot of information out there about it. On September 30th, 1952, the burned body of a young woman was found in Black Hawk, Colorado. Her cause of death is listed as homicide. An autopsy for the woman revealed she had suffered blunt force trauma to the head, but it's not known if that was the cause of death or if she was still alive when she was set on fire. Over the years, this case has come to be referenced in several different ways. One of them is the Pyre Case or the Pyre Murder. Another one is Gilpin County Jane Doe. The name Maria has also been used to reference the victim. Apparently, the name Maria came into play when a wax form composite drawing was created for the victim. It was a name given to her by detectives working to solve her murder. References to this case as the Pyre Case or the Pyre Murder are a lot more clear. That's because of the way the victim's body was found. It was as though somebody had put her in a funeral pyre. They were, of course, trying to cover up the fact that they had murdered someone. They thought the body would burn and nobody would ever find it. And if somebody did find it, all the evidence would be gone, including what she looked like in life. The body was so badly burned that it's estimated only around 15 pounds of human bones and flesh was left. One of the victim's legs had been pulled away from the other parts of the remains and carried a short distance. Investigators say it was possible that this was done by an animal of some kind. Investigators don't believe the victim was murdered in this location. They believe that she was brought there after she was killed in some other place. It's believed that the body had been placed there sometime between 20 and 30 days before. That means her body was put there sometime between the very end of August and sometime around September 10th. It's estimated that the victim was anywhere from 17 to 30 years old. She is of an unknown race. She was possibly 5'7" tall. She had an unknown weight due to the state of her body. Her hair was believed to be brown or black, and her eye color is unknown. A distinguishing feature is that the victim had a prominent overbite. The Doe Network describes the circumstances of the victim's discovery as being found under a 7-foot charred log in an unused gravel pit in the woods. She was found by a man who was on a hunting trip in Black Hawk. The location of her body was approximately 100 yards from Highway 119 and about 25 feet from Clear Creek. The location was about 6.5 miles south of Black Hawk in a small gulch off of Highway 119. The log and the remains smelled like they had been drenched in gasoline. Some articles of clothing and accessories were found with the remains. They include a fragment of a sequin cloth from a turquoise-colored blouse, a small electric razor, metal rivets of blue jeans, the sole of one shoe, a purse, and a lipstick container, a Denver tramway token, 3 safety pins, 2 pieces of a broken handbag mirror. Jewelry was also found with the body, a rhinestone necklace and a pair of earrings. There was also a man's ring with no setting. Around 20 feet away from where the remains were found, investigators found a 3-foot-long stick with blood on it. Near the stick, investigators found another earring, a 3rd earring. The man who found the remains was named Charles Dameth, and we'll talk about him more in just a little bit. Over the years, police did have clues and tips in the case that they thought might help solve it. In an article dated November 29th, 1953 from the Palladium Item newspaper out of Richmond, Indiana, an update was printed on the investigation into the case. The article was written a year and 2 months after the discovery of the victim. The article details how Lloyd W. Mason, an ex-convict, contacted a Denver newspaper and told them that he knew who the murdered woman was. Mason said that he thought the murder victim was a woman named Dolores Parkhurst, who was a waitress in Granby, Colorado. It seems like Mason was basing some of the information on the fact that Dolores Parkhurst was a full-blooded Native American, and it seems like he believed that she might resemble the Jane Doe. The victim had been described as having high cheekbones, which is a common distinguishing feature among Native Americans. The article does not detail any more about why Mason thought Dolores Parkhurst was the victim. Police, of course, investigated this, and they found Dolores Parkhurst was alive and well, and she was residing in Lakewood, Colorado. Police believe that Mason also could have been confusing the victim for another waitress in the area named Gladys Edwards. Gladys Edwards had disappeared from the Granby area, but police were able to track her down, and she was serving a prison sentence in California. So that was another dead end for police in their investigation into who killed their Jane Doe and who she was. In the article, the Gilpin County Sheriff at the time, Kenneth McKenzie, seemed very dismayed and upset by the progress in the case. It seems like all the officials and authorities in the case were working really hard to solve it, but they weren't getting anywhere. McKenzie said, quote, "We don't know who killed her. We have checked out every tip to the limit, and without success. This case is very much still open, but there haven't been any new developments to indicate any solution is near." End quote. In October of 1954, another possible solution would come in the case. On October 11th of that year, the Daily Sentinel out of Grand Junction, Colorado, published an article about the murder victim. At this point in time, it had been more than 2 years since the victim's body was found. In the article, the victim is linked to another woman who had been missing for several years. Josephine Geraldine Turner was a 40-year-old woman out of Peekaboo, Idaho. Turner had been missing for about 5 years. A photograph of Turner had been sent to Sheriff McKenzie. The photo was nearly identical to an artist's rendering of the murder victim. Sheriff McKenzie ordered dental records for Turner to compare to those of the victim to see if they were a match. Sheriff McKenzie has described the victim's teeth as one of the most tangible clues to her identity because she has such a distinctive jawline. When the dental records came, they would be another dead end. Josephine Geraldine Turner was not the Black Hawk Pyre Murder victim. Now let's get back to Charles Dameth. Charles seems to be the most prominent suspect in the case. Charles was the person who found the remains. He was out hunting when he found the victim. Charles said he had been out hunting in the area several times in the past, and it was a popular place for target practice among hunters. Something very strange that Charles did was that he went back to the site where the remains were found several times before he reported it to the police. Additionally, Charles told investigators that he had been the one to go out and cut the log that was placed on the victim. He said he had done so back in March when he was looking for firewood. A little bit later, Charles would separate from his wife and move to Cass City, Michigan. At that point, Charles would be questioned again by officials. When Charles was questioned, he was dosed with amytal sodium. According to drugs.com, amytal sodium is a controlled substance. Indications and uses for the drug are as a sedative or hypnotic for short-term treatment of insomnia and as a pre-anesthetic. It's described as a non-selective central nervous system depressant that's primarily used as a sedative hypnotic. The drug is also used in subhypnotic doses as an anticonvulsant. So basically, it was being used as a truth serum on Charles Dameth. Charles was questioned for around 6 hours. After the interview, the DA in the case, George Priest, said he did not believe Charles Dameth was the one responsible for murdering the victim. Another interesting thing to point out in this case is how some of the evidence was found. Apparently, a week or two after the discovery of the victim's remains, a local woman decided she wanted to go out and explore the crime scene for herself. Her name was Mrs. Frank Heitman. While Mrs. Heitman was there, she found some of the evidence in the case. The woman apparently found the 3-foot-long stick with blood on it, a burned piece of leather, and the third earring. The stick was found about 20 feet from the remains. According to Wikipedia, there were at least 5 suspects other than Charles Dameth looked into for killing the victim. One of the things in this case that sticks out the most to me is the extra jewelry found at the scene. A man's ring with no setting was found near her body, and near where the bloody stick was found, around 20 feet away from the remains, the 3rd earring was found. To me, that makes me think that possibly this victim was murdered by 2 people, a man and a woman. Plus, a 7-foot log would be pretty heavy. It might take 2 people to be able to move that. For me, it's just heartbreaking to think about how much this woman must have suffered. She was bludgeoned with a stick, and that may or may not have been what killed her. She could have been killed by the fire. She could have burned to death. Either way, it's horrific. This poor woman, what she must have gone through. This is a brutal, awful, gruesome attack. And that added to the fact that it's almost 70 years later and we still don't know her name, and her family never found out what happened to her. Her mom and dad went to their graves not knowing what became of their daughter. One day she just vanished and they never saw her again. Maria never got her name back and she never got justice. Well, that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining me again today, and remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.